Joining me now by phone is Michael Yon on BlackRock, basically cutting a deal when it comes to the Panama Canal and putting them under American control. He joins us literally from the Panama Canal. There might be some background noise, so I'll warn you guys up front. He literally is on the Panama Canal, joins us by phone. Michael, thank you for joining us. Give us your thoughts. BlackRock strikes a $23 billion deal to place Panama Canal ports under American control. Tell us about it, please, Michael.
Right. The noise that you hear is I'm actually right in front of one of the ports that they just bought. And I'm here coincidentally, actually, researching something else. And but I pass by this like daily. So this is, of course, BlackRock is reportedly spent or is going to pay $23 billion for a couple of the ports. And I go by them all the time, either by air or in the boat sometimes, and I just drive by them. So they're very busy. I'm looking at all their containers right now. Now there's a lot more going on here than just these ports. And keep in mind, BlackRock, of course, is, the thing was just said within the last 48 or 72 hours that he's totally good with letting the invasion continue. He's very clear about that. Very clear words. Like he thinks that we need all these invaders to continue to come into the United States. So that's who just bought these ports. And that's it. So it's quite interesting to see this play out up close and personal, especially since I've spent about almost a year of the last 4 years here. Just because when Biden was installed, I thought, Panama is finally going to reach some sort of turning point for numerous reasons. One is the things going on down in the Darien, and another is, obviously the canal here, and then there's many other issues as well. But one thing that was interesting, just yesterday, a document was released by the Panamanian government, and I'm getting it translated now. It should be done in a couple of hours. But it's the document in Spanish is basically, it looks like it was written by the United Nations to me, but it's very clear that they're pushing, and the government is now going to allow many of these people that have come through the Darien Gap to actually get to be able to stay in Panama with permission, right? So they're going to be able to stay. That's literally, the government's just released that document yesterday. I should have it up. I should have it translated within 2 more hours. And so this is the way it's going. I mean, you can see that this country ultimately, in my view, will become destabilized. I see numerous players that would like to see them destabilized, each for their own reasons. And basically, Panama is a big, juicy sheep with a garland of pork chops around its neck, surrounded by predators who are also predacious towards each other. Right, so they're fighting. They're going to rip this country apart, trying to get the pieces of it. China is still pulling in huge numbers of people and getting citizenship here and that sort of thing. And in the Darien Gap, just in 2023, we know I'm just going to give you 1 year, 2023, more than 500,000 people came through, and we know that. We know the names and everything. Right, they came. More than 500,000, more than 25,000 of those that came to the Darien Gap were Chinese. More than 25,000 were Chinese, just 2023. Now, during Biden's reign, I'm guessing, it's a very well-educated guess, that about 1.4 million came through the Darien Gap alone. And I'm saying that based on, we have records for almost 1.1 million, and then a lot of the records are missing. So extrapolating, it would be roughly 1.4 million. And that's actually being conservative, probably a little bit more than that, but I'm being conservative in case those records ever emerge. I definitely should be well accurate. But this is just one invasion route, keep in mind. And the BlackRock guy thinks he wants the invasions to continue. Now, one thing is very important to me, and I communicate with Trump team constantly. Today, yesterday, I mean, pretty much every day, right? And I keep telling them that if you're not defunding the United Nations, all the rest of this does not matter. You're just turning off the water spigot. Now, the flows through the Darien Gap right now of the invasion is probably 1 or 2% of what it used to be at this time last year. I mean, it's very low, like, 15, 20 a day, that sort of thing. But That said, all the plumbing is still in place. The United Nations, they're not far from me. Their office, their complex at the Ciudad de Saber, the City of Knowledge, the former U.S. Army base called Fort Clayton. They basically, they don't really own it, but they rent a lot of buildings there. They lease a lot of buildings there, and they're fully operational. They're fully operational down in Colombia right now and here in Panama. And all along the pipeline that we're checking, they're fully operational. All the camps are manned. I saw, Tucker Carlson talking with Colonel Doug McGregor yesterday, and they mentioned my work down here. And Doug McGregor was saying these camps need to be all torn down. And that's exactly, I talked with Doug about that a couple of days before. It's like, look, if you don't tear these camps down, you're just joking. You know what I mean? None of this matters because you're turning off the water spigot while the plumbing is still in place, because sooner or later Trump will be gone, and it will be very soon, of course, because within 4 years he's gone. And within 2 years, his power is going to be abating, significantly. If he hasn't ripped up the United Nations by then, the waterworks is still there. They're just going to continue their operations. I published today that the UN IOM, their plan through 2028, they're very open about it. And their plan is crystal clear to continue the invasion. So this is just a minor setback with Trump, doing his thing right now. And so I'm not even sure it's a setback. I mean, they're going to continue to build up their structure, and then just when the flows kick on, boom, Europe will get more. Ireland's basically a dead man walking. We went over there and checked that out a couple of years ago, and Canada, similar, and the flows, and it's going to end up destabilizing this country that I'm in, Panama. And you know where I'm standing right now, by the way? I wish we had video. There's a fire behind me, and it's a eternal flame. It started. It's a memorial for there was a big famous incident here in 1964 where some students were killed protesting about the United States being here. They were communist students and that sort of thing. So there's a fire right behind me. It's the eternal flame, and the Panamanian flag here. Many people have seen the photo of the students flying up the flagpole or climbing up the flagpole. It's very famous from 1964. If you web search it, you'll see super famous photo. It may have been photo of the year, probably was. And I'm also looking at the canal headquarters, right? And it's right in front of me, and right by Ancon Hill. For those who know Panama City, you know exactly what I'm looking at right now, and you know exactly where I'm at with this description. Right by all this stuff is together. The Panama Canal is just close to me. The China Bridge, I was at it this morning. They're working on it this morning. That's Bridge 4. Now, some people are getting angry now when I call it China Bridge, but I learned to call it China Bridge from Panamanians. But after Trump said, that China is doing all these things, and when I kept calling it China Bridge, suddenly people started getting upset about it. But I'm like, hey, I learned the term China Bridge from you guys, And actually, one thing that's important, Brandon, is that a lot of people want the United States to come back. A lot of them do, not all, but a lot of them want the United States to come back, which is interesting in and of itself. So, and there are, I think between us and a million people listening, I think the United States is going to come back and put bases here, and I'm going to guess 3 bases. I'm just guessing. It's an educated guess, but that's all it is. I think there'll be one down in the Darien province and a couple more. And actually, the Panamanian government just announced yesterday they're buying some Super Tucano light attack aircraft. Those are excellent aircraft. Actually, if you look at my Afghanistan work, I was like 15 years ago saying we need these things in Afghanistan. Everybody loves the A-10, but I wanted Super Tucanos. But anyway, that's what the Panamanian Senate Front is about to get is or they're not supposed to have the military, but they're about to have attack aircraft, which is exciting a lot of Panamanians. And actually, many Panamanians seem to think right now that because there's a lot of public commentary in the last 24 hours after the announcement of the Super Tucanos, some people think that they're going to use those to fight back the Americans. But rest assured, it's American money that's going to buy them. I'm guessing anyway.
So does Panama? Are they wanting to not have the influence of China in their country, or do they?
No, they don't want it. I mean, they want the money, but they're crystal clear. They don't want the Chinese. here. They don't keep in mind. There's different types of Chinese here. There's Chinese that have been here since 170 years or so, and so they're Panamanians. You know what I mean? They're super welcome. They're just Panamanians. They're part of the fabric, right? But then there's the new ones, and the old Chinese don't want the new ones either. So I mean, it's the old Chinese that are here that have been here since railroad and other days, and then finally the canal days, and now, again, they're like super multi-generational Chinese here. They speak Spanish fluently and that sort of thing.
So are you concerned about, I don't know if you would call it a civil war or an invasion through immigration, all these CCP folks coming in there? Are you concerned that this is going to be a flashpoint of conflict between America and China there at the Panama Canal?
Well, you know me. If I'm setting up shop somewhere, you should probably be moving out. I mean, there's a reason I spent the last, so much, like 25% of the last 4 years or so I've spent here. The rest of it's been off in, Texas and Japan and Thailand and Argentina, looking at different aspects of this, many different countries. But, in the last 4 years, I've been in about 30 countries looking at this. Canada, Bahamas. I mean, I've got a pretty serious grip on the context, but I keep coming back to Panama because I realize from my experience of studying wars and being in wars in different places, that the conditions are accruing here. And out of all the places in the world I've ever been, I am standing in one of the most vital places in the world right now, at the Panama Canal, right next to the big Hutchison port, right next to the canal. I see the cranes right now that are working on the canal where I'm standing, right? So, I'm literally within crossbow distance of the canal. So this is really actually so important because it's a path between the seas, which is an excellent book. Everybody should read The Path Between the Seas. But it's also a path between the continents. They're building a road down to Colombia. Now, everybody denies that, but I can assure you 100% that they are. 100%. If anybody says they're not doing it, they don't know what they're talking about, or they are lying, because I'm the one that found it, right? I went down there about a year and a half ago and found it. They're building 2 bridges, and if you line up the azimuth of those bridges, take your compass or just look on Google Earth, and you'll see that, boom, it goes right to where they've been thinking about building a road for, 100 years, longer. And so, it's already mapped out. And, I've got a book, China's Belt and Road Initiative, Panama. And, they're talking about going right that route. They're clearly building. And so that's a path between the continents, which has big implications. Positive and negative, depending on which way, you look at it. So this is what I'm getting to, though. Whatever happens, this will be a contested area forever as long as people do human trade, right? As long as they do, 500 years ago, about 520 years ago now, when 523-ish years ago, when Columbus was sailing off the Panamanian coast, the Darien Isthmus, he was trying to get over, and find a way to the India, right? So, they were trying to find a way. And finally, Balboa came, and in 1510, he opened a city or a town, let's say a settlement, called Santa Maria La Antigua del Darien, right? So that was the first Western settlement that was on mainland South or North America, right? So it was in the Darien, right? That's how important it is. In 1510, Balboa opened that. They were like, we're going to make a path between the seas, right? And that didn't last long. They lasted about 14 years, and the Indians and the mosquitoes and everything else crushed them. And then many other people have come to try to make a path between the seas. One of those was the Scottish. They came in 1698-ish, arguably, and they they gave 2 goes at making a passage in the Darien, and 2,000 dead Scotsmen later, Scotland was bankrupt. So they went bankrupt, and then in 1706/1707, they were absorbed by the United Kingdom. So Scotland was dissolved as a sovereign country in 1707 because they got smashed flat in the Darien. Then came other people who all got smashed. And then came the French, who had been successful with the Suez Canal, and the man named de Lesseps, French guy, you see his name all over the place here, he came and he tried to make a French canal across the Panama, the Isthmus of Panama. Of course, they did a lot of studies on Nicaragua and all that, and I've actually been up there and looked at that as well. But you know, then the French went bankrupt, and de Lesseps almost went to prison. And then the crazy Americans came and said, "We can do it." And, you know, a lot of people were betting against the Americans because it was pretty crazy to think that you could do it. And then they did it, and it's right in front of me. Not only did they open the canal in 1914, it's a marvel. I mean, if you haven't seen the Panama Canal, you need to come down and get in a boat and go through it. And if you can, get in a helicopter or an airplane and go over it, which I've done quite a few times. In fact, I'm trying to arrange for another one right now because I want to get over. There goes a plane just went over me. You might have heard it.
So let me ask you this, Michael. How concerned are you about BlackRock? Because Radio Free Asia has an article out. BlackRock scrutinized for alleged China investment misstatements. How close do you think is BlackRock tied to China?
Super close. I mean, they're one of the only firms that's allowed to do asset management in China. I mean, think about that for a minute. I mean, basically, you know, Trump giving it to BlackRock is just, I think, basically taking it from one hand and putting it in the other.
Yes, that was my concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very clear. I mean, so everybody gets excited. Yay, wow, you know, they got an American flag. No, I don't think so.
Is building the military bases there, is that going to be our way of telling China, don't mess with the Panama Canal?
It's really unclear because you see this blended approach about what's going on. For instance, Fink at BlackRock, I mean, he was crystal clear like 48, 72 hours ago. I saw the video. And, you know, he wants the invasions to continue, which means lots and lots of Chinese are still going to get. I mean, this government, Panama, is relatively weak. And there is just so many people that want a piece of this country. It is literally a juicy lamb with a garland of pork chops around it.
So Panama is being pushed around. So it's going to be a matter of who puts in the most assets, the most troops, the most money, and gets down there and physically backs up the government and gets the on the side of the government down there, because it sounds like they're easily pushed around right now.
Yeah, but again, China is coming in with demographic weapons. I mean, they are flooding this place with demographic weapons. I mean, there's a clear move to destabilize Panama. But let me leave Panama for a minute and go over to Asia, to Thailand. Not Taiwan, but Thailand. And it's interesting, and I compare and contrast because I'm quite familiar with Thailand. If you web search my name, you'll see me flying around with the prime minister and all that stuff. And so I spent a lot of time. I've been all over that country. I was just over there again last year looking at it, and I see there's at least two major powers destabilizing Thailand, and maybe more, but definitely at least two, and that would be Chinese Communist Party and the United States. And that's what it appears to be happening here in Panama. It appears to me that the United States and China are both destabilizing Panama for their own reasons and in their own ways, right? China just wants to slowly take it because that's their way of doing it. They just like to grow over you like kudzu, right? Like a vine, and they just cover up your whole structure. And actually, one Chinese officer told me that, actually, a military officer. And then another general in Honduras told me that. He's quite familiar with the Chinese because he's of Chinese descent. And they both used almost precisely the same words. They're like, China doesn't want to come and attack you. They will just become you. It's interesting that PLA officer said, no, we're not going to attack Taiwan. Now I'm talking about Taiwan, not Thailand. He said, we're not going to attack Taiwan because we're just going to become Taiwan. You don't understand how we're doing this. We already have thousands of their countries in China. And he's like, this is China. I was talking with the PLA officer in Taiwan. I said this to some military officers one time some years ago, and they thought I'd lost my mind. They're like, there is no way you talk to a Chinese military officer in Taiwan. And I'm like, I assure you I did. And last year I was actually with a friend of the president of Taiwan. I was with him quite a few times, dinner and lunch, and in his office. And I said, about 15 years ago or so, I was here and I was talking with a PLA officer, and I told some American officers that, and they all thought I was crazy. He said, "Yeah, actually, I'm the one that leads their tours." He said, "They actually give tours to the Chinese officers, and he's the one that leads them." I just messaged him last week. I mean, this is the kind of crazy world that we live in. You know what I mean? Where mainland Chinese officers come and take tours of Taiwan. You can't make up this stuff.
Let me ask you.
It's just like right out of a fiction book.
Yeah. Let me ask you in closing, because I know you're on a tight schedule. When you look at what's going on with Panama, still we have concerns about Taiwan, the Philippines, what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and trying to get a deal there. And yet Russia, Ukraine, and Russia, Iran, and China are about to have military exercises. We have all the things going on in the world that we have going on. Now you had the Panama Canal to our conversation. How concerned are you, Michael, that the globalists are not going to sit by and let Donald Trump and Elon Musk change the game plan, the World Economic Forum game plan, or whatever it might be? How long before you think they create massive trouble, or even, I hate to say it, more attempts on the life of President Trump? But in other words, they're not going to just let him sit here for 4 years and stop the World Economic Forum agenda or the globalist agenda and do what he's doing. Or do you think they're just going to wait him out for 4 years?
I don't know. I mean, there's many species of globalists, by the way, one of which is obviously Donald Trump. But there's different types of them, and these oligarchical structures are fighting each other. They always have. I mean, I read history. The reason I'm standing here by the fire and all that stuff and near the headquarters, because I've been at the library all day. It's the old library. I spent all day yesterday in it and all day today, right? I mean, I'm looking at the historical issues that are surrounding Panama, but, also I've read a lot about Rome and all these other things, all these Belt and Road initiatives that people think are new now. They go back to the Roman times and Genghis Khan. And I mean, this is Marco Polo stuff. It never ends, right? And so right now, it's a huge fight between very powerful oligarchical structures, some of whom are blended with each other. Like BlackRock is blended across they're like a made-a country, right? There's some of these oligarchical, I mean, most of them, in my view, are made-a country. Let's look at, say, the Catholic Church. That's like a made-a country, the Vatican, right? It's technically a little country there, but it's also got power around the world that transcends borders, right? There are many globalist groups like that. And then when they come together and meet at World Economic Forum over in Switzerland or in China, because they have meetings in China and other places too, when they come together at those meetings, then we call them, that's the guys. But in fact, that's a constellation of other, basically little galaxies of globalists, right? And so there's all kinds of, this is very complex. It's like, when I had Brett Weinstein down here in the jungle, and he loves the jungle, I'll tell you that. And he went down to the Darien Gap, and, of course, he had spent a lot of time in Panama because he did his PhD work here. And Brett said to him, you keep saying they, but who is they? And who runs this thing? He said, who runs it? I said, Brett, I don't really know. Who runs this jungle that we're in? You know what I mean? Nobody runs this jungle. We know that there's, crocodiles here and all these other things, but and they all have lives of their own, but they also cooperate in their own ways, so that's the way these globalists are. Like the Chinese and BlackRock clearly work. BlackRock clearly works with the U.S. president. But the president will be gone, and BlackRock will work with the next president. So whoever's in charge of BlackRock may be in charge for a very long time, but who's in charge? Who's the president of the United States? They're just going to come and go. They're like leaves on a tree, right? So this is the long-term, long-game globalism. There's many types of globalism, and some of the structures that we're dealing with now have been around for 2,000 years or more, right?
Right.
And then others are newer.
Look at this here, folks. Here, if you want to follow him on X, at Michael_Yon, at Michael_Yon, to follow him on X and keep up with the latest. So the story tonight is, again, BlackRock is going to basically, take control to some degree with their investment, $23 billion. But is it really just, again, as he said, changing the name, but the same group really involved in BlackRock apparently is so influenced by the Chinese. But as he said, this is an area that is continuing to be filled up with CCP folks. America wants a presence down there, and it's a great choking point for providing, for cutting off America and the goods and services that need to come into our country through that. So again, strategic places to surround the United States and collapse us from within could be the strategy. Kind of the new way of warfare, unrestricted warfare without firing a shot. Closing comment?
Oh, yeah. Now, keep in mind, there's 7 major naval chokeholds in the world, one of which is this canal, and this is by far the most important for the United States. And then there's the Suez, which has been largely blocked by that war over there. And so much of the traffic through the Suez has been coming through here, right? And then there's the Bab al-Mandeb, Strait of Hormuz, of course, Strait of Malacca, and some others. But the bottom line is, I think, let's see if I'm right, it could take years, but I think you're going to see some globalist structures that include the United States and Zionists will go for Suez. They'll go for Suez, they'll go for Bab al-Mandeb, and they will go for Strait of Hormuz, which means going for Iran, right? And so I think that you're going to see that, because when you look at this from a historical perspective, it doesn't matter about Trump and all that. He'll come and go. But there's the larger energies at work here. And with those larger historical sort of just precedent and the way things go, I think they're going to go for all 4 of those. There's 7 major choke points, but I think they're going to go for 4 of them. And one of them is here, right now, where I'm at, Panama Canal.
Wow. Michael Yon reporting literally from the Panama Canal. Be sure to follow him on X, at Michael_Yon, at Michael_Yon. Michael, as always, thank you for your great reporting and literally on location. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
Michael Yon checking in. Follow him at Michael_Yon.